Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Mastering the Drop, a real view of recovery, where I always start in some sort of weird, awkward stance. But we are here, we are live, and as always, we're talking about a topic that is important, something that I'm very passionate about, that not only myself, but hundreds of other people have found to be useful, beneficial in their life recovery journey, whatever that might be from, whether that's, controlled substance, alcohol, food, sugar, shopping, people pleasing, whatever it might be for you, that habit that's holding you hostage, that reliance on whatever thing outside of yourself you have to bring you peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, and worthiness. Where we have found an effective way to practically apply the psychological skill sets and tactics that allow us to actually make impactful change in our lives, so that we can experience ourselves the way that we want to experience ourselves, so that we can experience our environments the way that we desire, but also so that we can experience living, and everybody that we are surrounded by can experience us in our best light. And today I have one of my favorite people on the planet, Miss Julianne Tucker, who just so happens to be one of our amazing coaches here at Turning Leaves, with her own special and unique population that she serves, but also her own unique and amazingly special approach to the work, because we all get to add, edit, delete, change, shift, morph, make it our own so that it serves us completely, because this is not, a universal event. We're talking about your life. You are a unique individual being, and you deserve to have a unique fit for you and somebody that can help you figure that out. Anyway, blah, blah, here I am. We are talking today about something that I've been hearing a lot, and not just with clients, but I'm hearing this with people that are in, say, longer term recovery, people that have, say, been on a journey for, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, even as far as 13 years. I've been having conversations with people about this plateau, about this stalling, if you will, about having never truly realized an increased level of life enjoyment and satisfaction, even though they dropped whatever habit, negative attachment, or full-blown addiction they had. They just feel like, okay, I removed it. Why aren't things improving? And even those that have made significant life improvements and had some life satisfaction for a period of time, again, have plateaued and or are like, I'm experiencing this major block right now. I can't identify what it is. And so this is truly important. Anyway, Julianne, introduce yourself, say hello. I know that you've got lots to say about all of that, but introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Julianne. I'm located in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been working with Tricia, I think, for about a year now. In my own personal recovery journey, I actually just recently realized, because I don't like to put an anniversary date on it, because to me that's not what's important for my recovery. But I realized it's been about 10 years of my recovery journey, actually, this year, which an exciting milestone to realize, although I don't normally put an anniversary on it. I am an affiliate coach at Turning Leaves, and really passionate about what we do there. As Tricia mentioned, one thing that really resonates with me and why I love working with the program is that it is so individual based, and there's a program, but you can customize it to yourself. And I really think everyone's journey is unique to them, whether that's complete abstinence, whether it's using harm reduction within your life, or whatever adjustments you need to make so that you're showing up how you really want to show up in your life in all aspects, like at work, your relationships, for yourself, most importantly, showing up for yourself is what's most important, and also recognizing that there are roadblocks and there are plateaus, and you're not going to get it right forever. You're not a perfect being, and that's okay. And that's when you get to come back and say, okay, let me reassess what I'm doing. And maybe something else is going to work better now, or maybe you just need to get back to consistency, which is actually my biggest struggle. I feel like when I think about my personal journey, is consistency, and having really long periods of time where I'm high functioning and I'm using all my tools and I'm feeling really good about things, and it's great. And then as someone who suffers from anxiety and depression, along with addiction issues as well, that also creates a lot of exhaustion for me sometimes. And so I often have to reassess what I'm doing, or pick up new tools, or just take a good hard look at myself and say, hey, this isn't working. Like, what are we going to do here so that it is working for you? And I think that's just human and it's normal. And so I like to be relatable in that way and let people know that about myself. I'm a coach, but I'm not perfect, but I can still help you build a plan and find the tools that you need that are going to work for you, and help hold you accountable when you need to be. So yeah, so that's my little spiel about myself.
I love it. But I love what you are, what you're talking about, and how, we can all identify, because I also, am approaching that 10-year. I also don't really, look at that anniversary date, nor do I walk around and identify as, I don't put labels on myself, but I have created a lifestyle for myself that is, strong and fulfilling. But that doesn't mean that I don't need tune-ups. It doesn't mean that I don't need to go deeper ever. It doesn't mean that I don't have to address barriers or emotional sensitivity or reactivity, or just even expand the reach of those tools. Because as you grow, change, shift, morph, as you create a solid foundation and a solid footing, at where you are in that time and space, then that ultimately ought to be producing growth and change, which means now I'm here, I've got to expand even further. And when that gets solid, right, we're almost talking about actualization, right? Like we're just continuing to grow. And do we ever fully actualize? And in my 50s, I can say I haven't yet. Like, do I feel like I'm in a good season for me? Absolutely. Is this my favorite season thus far? As an adult with adult children, and somebody that doesn't have those responsibilities in the house anymore, sure, this is my favorite season. But I think it's it's awesome to be able to just pick up and go visit grandkids and say hi to the kids, and then come home to the quiet. But I think it's really important that we have, like, a little checklist, and the checklist I like to use is, where did I start? Right. Which sometimes can be, like, for me, that's opening a bucket of worms, right? We're going to go back to 1974. Anyway, so that could be a long journey, right? But sometimes I just kind of do and how much have I attained? Because my actual recovery journey has been, I don't know, about 27 years long, maybe 25, going on 26, somewhere around there, depending on what you're talking about, right? Not everything was ready to recover at the same time. So not everything needs time and attention at the same time. And I can't put everything in one little bundle or box, because it's just not fair to the different things that I've attained or achieved or improved. But it's also not fair to the things that, were the issue, right? Like, I can't treat the way that I stopped drinking and the way that I, recovered from anorexia the same way.
Mhm.
Right? I can't,
Yeah.
my relationship with food has to be lifelong. I don't ever have to pick up alcohol ever again, but I got to eat every day. That's going to be a totally different nurturing process. And I have to be willing to do that. The same with anxiety. Like if I'm not paying attention to the fact that, I tend to be prone to generalized anxiety disorder. If I don't pay attention to that, it can creep in and I'm like, what? That doesn't mean that I struggle with anxiety on a daily basis. I don't. But, so I take this time and I kind of look at, each different thing. And that's because I like to work in categories. For me, it keeps things smaller. It's not overwhelming. It keeps me from future tripping, which just incites anxiety, all of the things. And so I look at where did I start with each of these things? How much have I attained? What have I, what have I produced? What have I, created? And how in tune am I with my aspirations and goals and outcomes that I desired? How in tune am I with myself, my personal needs, my growth needs? And again, there's more categories that I kind of pick off and check the boxes on. Because if I'm in tune with those things, it ought to be super easy to identify where that roadblock is, or to project where a roadblock may come in, right? And so that's all about, like taking time to recognize and asking myself, what's going on internally, recognizing what's going on internally, and then shifting into a willingness to hear myself, to hear others, to listen, to seek, etc. And truly allow myself to experience new things. We tend to, and this is where, and I'm going to shut up, but when we talk about why living without habits fixes everything, we get in these ruts, we get in that habitual lifestyle. And when that habitual lifestyle doesn't, is one, not producing any kind of, excitement, right? It kind of becomes flat, mundane, very routine, but it also doesn't generate as much excitement. So now we don't have that dopamine, right? We want to allow ourselves to experience new things, but also, look at the things that we do in our life, not as habits or, just the way we do things, or things that we rely on, like the 6 a.m. spin class to, start our day right. We need to be bendable, flexible, and pliable, and allow ourselves to experience things in a different way. Anyway, that's kind of a process that I go through, and I think it's very similar to what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, do you have specific things that you will like add in or take away, or?
Yeah, for me, usually it's like creating structure. Like I'm a very free-flowing person, but I also really thrive when I have like a certain amount of structure. But I tend to also get really caught up in what I'm doing, really caught up in things like work and relationships, and then occasionally abandon that structure. And that's when things start to break down. And when I notice things start to break down, that's when I have to take a look and say, okay, well, why wasn't that structure working for me anymore? Why did I abandon it? Is there something I need to adjust with it? Or is it my own personal struggle with consistency, which is a big one, and I think really like at 37 now, I would say like my biggest hurdle is probably like boundaries and working on my codependency issues, which were very tied into my addiction issues when I was younger. And I didn't even realize, and it also sparked a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression. And I didn't even know what codependency was for a really long time. I've been sober for my drugs of choice for 10 years, and that's going great. But the one little thing that always rears its head is that codependency that then triggers like anxiety. I'm not holding good boundaries with people or with jobs, and stuff like that. And then I'm not leaving that time for self-care to adhere to my structure that is self-care to me. and just make space for myself. And then I start to get that overwhelm, and I start to get that exhaustion, and I start to get that fatigue. And it kind of goes through cycles over like 3 to 4 year periods of being totally fine. And then a little trigger happens, and you think you've got it, and you realize, maybe you've stopped like maintaining those things you needed to maintain so that those triggers don't get at you and they don't derail everything that you're doing. And so that's kind of like where I feel like I'm at, and where most of my work around myself needs to be done, is creating those structures that are going to work for me, that aren't also going to just stress me out too, because maybe they're too rigid, and find kind of that middle ground of flexibility, and also sticking to things that will keep me consistent, and keep me showing up as the person that I want to be showing up with in my daily life. So yeah.
You saw me writing away over here because I always get so much from our conversations. And I love that. And so, I wrote down 4 things. So I want to start with codependency, because you said I didn't even know what it was. And I think this is important, because I would think anybody that's listening, y'all are going to say, oh, I know what codependency is. Everybody says they know what codependency is, but I wonder if they truly can define it. And I almost dislike the term, right? I almost dislike that. So, we think about codependency, whatever, and we think about it as, just that romantic partner or our kids, right? We think about our family unit, and it is definitely deeper, broader, and farther reaching than any of those things. And it's, again, a reliance on things outside of you to bring you peace, joy, comfort, relief, but mostly value, validity, and worthiness. And so it's that dependence on, your boss acknowledging your work. It's dependent on praise from your coworkers. It's dependence on people depending on you. It is, right? It's that seeking. And if I don't have this high level, high power, highly busy, I don't know, task-oriented job where I can do something so that I can achieve, right? So we're overachievers. We have to, we're perfectionists. All of these things go into what codependency truly represents. But we also don't know who we are outside of the roles we have assigned to ourselves. And I say we've assigned them to ourselves because this was me, and nobody in my family, not my kids, not my spouse, not my, anybody, nobody looked at me the way that I thought that they were looking at me, which was, like I had my roles and responsibilities, but my thoughts, feelings, emotions, opinions, beliefs, needs, wants, dreams, desires, etc., were not seen as holding any value or validity, and weren't worthy of being heard. Nobody thought that. I did, right? I thought if I can just show up and be everything for everybody, like, then I'm gonna, that's how I get my worth. And who was I wrong? And wow, am I thankful that I realized that and really, shifted inside me. It had nothing to do with anybody else. It was me, right? And so I was codependent. There wasn't a codependency going on at all. And so we want to look at that also, as how much of it is all me and how much of it is, a unit, because there are enmeshed systems, 100%. So when the whole team goes down, the whole team goes down. So, there's a lot of work to be done in that space, in that realm, and it definitely falls into the category of a behavioral addiction. So, yes, if you feel like you're a codependent and you don't have a substance or food or shopping addiction, totally fine. You can actually go on this journey, learn how to live free from being dependent on people, places, and things outside of yourself. Although you don't have to give them up, we all got to work, but that doesn't mean you have to be defined by those things. So that's what one thing I heard was the codependency. Any thoughts?
Yeah, So I realized like, so back when I decided I needed to get into recovery and take a hard look at myself, I had also come out of a really bad relationship where we were like drug using together. And I realized that relation, I didn't quite know what was going on, but I realized I had an attachment to it that was like very unhealthy. And I thought it just all had to do with, yeah, like like romantic relationships. I was like, oh, yeah, like that's codependency. And then I started going to Codependency Anonymous, in conjunction with Narcotics Anonymous. And when they started describing what a codependent was, I was almost like mad. I was like, who are you? No, like that's not, like you're saying everything is me. Like, no, it's not. Like it might be the situations I put myself in, but like you're trying to tell me I'm the one relating to things. Like, I don't want to use the word wrong, but that I'm not relating to things in a way that's healthy for me. It's other people that are being unhealthy around me. Like, what are you talking about? And then I realized codependency really was more, yeah, about how you are operating in your systems and your self-worth and what relationships and different things outside of you're using to define that. And I had a good definition of that was, and realized what my personal codependencies were. Everything became clear and kind of fell more into place. And it doesn't mean that I don't struggle with sometimes boundaries are a big thing for me with codependency, with work, with partners, with everything, with family and stuff. And so that's one area I'm always working on. But yeah, I think with codependency, it's really taking a good look at yourself and then realizing like you are the one that has to change. Because if you don't change, other people aren't going to relate to you the way that you want them to. You can't be everything for everyone and then get upset because people didn't thank you. That's a
It's
sign of
that big battle
codependency.
between my
you
internal
know
locus of control and my external locus
yeah
of control. And it's like this
yeah
big fight. Yeah.
yeah and so that was my big takeaway from when I was going to Codependency Anonymous. Was I was like, wow, like this is a me problem. It's not
Yeah.
everybody else. I thought I was just recovering from a bad relationship, and I was like, whoa, okay, like I've
Well,
got a
that's
lot of
one of the
work to
things
do
I
here.
love about the 9 modules or the steps in Live Free, because they actually allow you to, if you focus them, again, categories. What is it
Mhm.
that I'm healing from? I have a category that is, codependency, internal issue, right? Like there's that. Um, and if we apply the psychological skill sets and tactics to a category with the intention of experiencing it differently, it changes. And it's just amazing. The other things that I heard, and thank you for that, because that was an amazing nugget, was consistency, to which I wrote complacency, because they go hand in hand. And sometimes we can be too consistent, and in our consistency, we can be instigating complacency, because we get in this rut. This is what I do here. This is what I do here, here, and here. And we leave out the pieces as we get better, or as we improve, as we achieve and attain. We get complacent because we're like, oh, I don't need to do my core non-physical feeling check-in anymore because I feel good. So we take out that 5 minutes that we were paying attention to ourselves throughout the day, every few hours. Literally, it's not even 5 whole minutes. Once you condition it as a way of being, it's super quick, just a little check-in. I do it between sessions. I got a full 60 seconds between every session, right? I'm checking in, gotta make sure, right? Because I can't bring one thing into the next thing. So, so in our consistency, we actually get complacent. And it is just such a unique phenomenon. But there's also complacency with consistency. and so those two things really play on each other. And so, for each person, we have to take a look at that and look at, one, how do we, ward against or ward off, being too consistent, overly complacent, or complacent, not consistent enough. And how do we keep that? And part of the way that we do that, here's my big answer. Anybody got a pen and a paper? My big answer is super short and simple, but it's don't stop aspiring.
Yeah.
We I've arrived, and then we stop, and then in our consistency we become complacent, and we cease to grow, we cease to change, we cease to morph, we cease to experience things outside of our little box, and over time we become less and less satisfied. We become less and less enchanted with this life that we have worked so hard to cultivate and create. And it's because we've stopped aspiring. We've stopped dreaming to attain new levels. That's it. That's what I got for you.
I absolutely agree with that. I think when we stop growing or thinking of ways to grow, that's when it becomes really easy to like abandon our tools or think we don't need them anymore, or kind of forget about them. And then it can make it a little bit more challenging to like pick up later. But if we're always thinking of how we can grow and we aren't letting ourselves settle into that like little spot of complacency, then life is a lot better, right? Because we're always excited. We're always looking for something. And I don't mean like looking for something outside of yourself. I mean, we're always looking for ways that we can improve and we can grow internally. And then that in turn just makes our life and our relationships outside of our internal so much better.
100%. I wrote one word, and you might be surprised by it, but comparison, because what you're saying is, stay motivated, right?
Yeah.
And I think when I see people that are, getting frustrated, or facing roadblocks in their motivation to continue to attain or change or grow, is that they're comparing. They're in a state of comparison. I was here and I got here and now I can't do that, like this is, and they're comparing. And I hear it, and here's the language. I'm not quite back to the person that I was before I needed, before my addiction, before, blah, 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 whatever insert your issue is. Why would we try to go back to, why would we compare ourselves, especially, my journey was 30, my addiction journey was 30 years long. Like, I'm not comparing myself to 12-year-old me and looking to like get back to that. That'd be miserable. I don't want to go back to 12, right? Like, I don't need to go back to that. But in my sharing yesterday, I was sharing with somebody, one of the things that keeps me never wanting to step back into that space and never really truly worrying about whether or not I'll pick up, a drink again, because when I stopped drinking and that mental clarity came in, and when I started feeding my body properly and that mental clarity, came in, and when my body started operating properly and that mental clarity came in, right? Like, it's been ongoing. And my intellect, that in my memory, if I'm giving my story, my journey, having always been, a highly intelligent child, again, remember, a child, I'm not comparing myself, but when I realized that I still had that capacity to learn, retain, to intellectualize, and that, wow, I have something profound to share and give to the world, right? That is all the motivation that I need to continue aspiring, continue learning, growing, changing, shifting, morphing, because then that just means I can help people. If I stayed, boom, at what I achieved at the end of, what I now call, learn to live free, I would have just stopped there, and I would have never been able to get anybody, help anybody grow past that. But of course, we now have, a whole library of things that, that we can utilize. But, that's the deal. We can't compare to ourselves, and we cannot compare to others.
Yeah, I love that so much because when you say that, I think of like, you mentioned like you can't compare or go back to when you were a child, but you could take that one thing from it that you would like to aspire to, that intellect, that inquiry, like power inquiry, that curious mind. And I think that's an important part of growth too, is also like realizing like you aren't ever going to be that person before, even if you think there was some perfect version of you in the past before whatever age that was, like whatever it is, there isn't. But there probably were some things that you really enjoyed that maybe you lost, and are maybe talents or skills or just hobbies, things that are going to bring a lot of joy and a lot of like, I would say like healthy self-care to your life. Like maybe you liked collaging or something when you were a child. And maybe that's a cool thing to get back into now, because maybe that's calming for you. Maybe that's, having some artistic expression. And so aspiring to do that more is a good thing to incorporate. But like, you're never going to be able to go backwards, but you can take those little things that, maybe you do feel made you at some point a little more, and incorporate those back in, and use those as aspirations.
Yes, but the thing that kills me all the time is, when people show up and they're like, oh, I need to get summer ready. I need to be bikini ready.
Mm,
And,
struggling with that
so
now.
I need to stop my food addiction, right? And I'm like, like we can't compare ourselves with our 20-year-old frame. I'm never going to be that again. Gravity is set in, right? Like 32 years later, like I can't aspire to be that. I can aspire to be the fittest I can be, but I need to do that with lifelong manageability and maintainability, and without the pressure for it to arrive in whatever this phantom 21-day thing is that everybody thinks like, that's not maintainable. That's like, okay, 21 days of focus. There's, that's okay. But you better plan for how you're going to make that lifelong manageable and maintainable. Because if you plan on losing 30 pounds in 30 days, like that's not maintainable.
I find what you just said so relatable, actually, because so I went through a kind of a weight loss journey during the pandemic. I lost 60 pounds, and then this last year I gained a bit of it back. And at first I got a little down on myself. I was like, oh my God, all that work you did. And I think you can kind of relate this a little bit to like your recovery journey too, and you know what I did instead? I mean, I did start working out. I'm not going to say I was just like, I'm not going to work out, but I decided that things weren't happening as quickly as I wanted. I wasn't going to get back that pandemic body that I had from being home all the time and working out by the summer. And I was a little bummed about that. But you know what I did? I just went and I bought a bathing suit that actually fits me, instead of trying to squeeze into the bathing suit that doesn't fit anymore. And maybe one day that will, but maybe that's a few months from now. And it's not right now. So right now I bought a bathing suit that fits me and it looks good on me. And I'm summer ready. There you go. And so you can't go back. You can only move forward.
That is it. That's like mic dropping, and I don't want to cuss, right? Like that's mic dropping right there. Like, boom, you said it. Everybody's bikini ready always. Like, go to Target, they sell them year round, just buy one that fits your body. But here's the thing, like I was on that post-recovery yo, right? Because cross addiction is a real thing. And again, it's no secret that my relationship with food has taken a lot of work, but here's the deal: 30 years of not taking care of myself, right? My organs needed to heal, they needed to repair, they needed to get back to some level of functioning. It's certainly not the level of functioning of the previous years, right? Like of my younger day. But so did my brain. Everything needed to kind of renegotiate with itself. So I had 2 different weight fluctuations of 30 pounds. Right? It was heavy when I started, dropped a bunch, gained it back, dropped it, and then gained it back. So the last time, right, I, instead of, this hyper focus, which I don't generally do, but again, being an addict of all addicts, right, that all in or all out, all in, all out, diet, no diet, unhealthy. Right. So as a recovery nutrition coach, I'm going to, and recovery fitness coach, I'm going to tell all of my clients, like, nope, we're going to make this lifelong manageable, maintainable. We're also going to be gentle with ourselves in early recovery. We have to get medical clearance. We got to make sure our liver, our blood pressure, everything is going right. We got to be fueling our body properly and giving it the right kinds of things. But then we also can't just jump straight into 6 days a week, 3 hours a day. It's not lifelong, manageable, maintainable. It's unrealistic. We might get to our result quicker, but then what? As we start to back it off to something that is lifelong, manageable, maintainable, we're going to creep back up, right? We're going to creep back up, and then we're going to be unsatisfied, probably give up, right? Like it's going to have a psychological effect. Instead of starting with 1 to 2 days a week of physical activity, healthy eating, adding a third day, leaving it at 3 days a week, creating that dietary practice, that relationship with food, and over time, allowing my body to systemically settle at a healthy natural weight for it, because we don't have to compare ourselves to, I don't know, need to be a size blah, 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 or I need to weigh X amount, right? Like that's all just pressure to perform. Instead, just systemically allow your body to settle into what it naturally will be. If you are, getting physical activity, exercise 3 days a week, if you get a fourth one, that's awesome. But if you put your pressure on 4 days a week and then you only make 3, now you're negatively talking to yourself. So if we aspire for 3 days, no more than an hour, 45 minutes is better. And we get that fourth day, make it a hike, make it something fun, do something invigorating, walk on the beach, whatever, take your shoes off, it's harder, and do something fun. Over time, what happened for me was somewhere over the course of a year, I lost 30 pounds, didn't realize it. And ever since, and this has been about 5 years now, I only bop up and down 3 to 6 pounds at max. And that 6 is generally because I've allowed myself to disregard all relationship with food and eat whatever I want on a long vacation, because I do love food, which is, a large feat in and of itself, right? For, an anorexic to say I love food that's a big awesome deal. So anyway, we want to do things the right way so that it sticks, so that it lasts, and then we can play with it, mix it up, yada yada. Anyway, I'm on a sermon. Julianne, do you have any last tips or anything that you'd like to leave everybody with? Because I'd like to, of course, connect them all with you by having you, in the comments below, drop your your contact information.
Oh yeah, of course. What do I have to leave people with? Well, I guess, if there's something like I've been really thinking about that I think is important, and also, a big part of living free, and a lot of what we try to teach and show people through Turning Leaves is the aspect of living for yourself first, and that's not selfish. You can't help the other people in your life effectively if you're not taking care of yourself first, if you're not addressing your issues, if you're not working on yourself, you're not working on growing. And I think we get so used to, especially if you have codependency issues, like someone like myself, you get so used to the idea of giving so much to people, regardless of whether they think you're not. Like that's like your purpose in life, is to constantly be giving outside of yourself. But then it leaves you exhausted, it leaves you fatigued, it leaves you irritable. You don't have that time or that space to work on that self-care or work on a program for yourself that's really going to work for you. Maybe you did have one and you abandoned it, or you're not using the tools that you developed, because you're not creating that time for yourself to sit down and take a look at like what your core needs are. So I can't stress enough like how important that is, to like really sit with yourself and say, okay, what do I need to be the best me? And maybe sometimes that's going to be things that other people don't agree with, or that are going to make it so that someone who you have been overextending yourself for isn't going to get that overextension anymore. And that's not a bad thing. That's like totally okay. You can find ways to show up for that person in other ways that aren't overextending yourself, once you figure out what your boundaries are, where you're going to place them in your different circles of your boundaries, and how you want to show up for yourself first. So I think that's like my biggest one. I think when you realize how you want to show up for yourself first, it's a little easier to start getting real about those negative habits also, and thinking of ways to replace them, or things you want to tweak or work on, so that you're just being the best you that you can be, And also, I always say this, it's like okay to backslide, it's okay to plateau, it is okay to reset. I don't think growth is linear. I think growth is your journey, and it's how you're going through it. And no one can tell you what that is for yourself, but also there's people like Tricia and myself who can help you set up that framework for yourself of what that's going to look like, and then help hold you accountable, and help you be able to hold yourself accountable to those things. And you don't have to be perfect. It is okay. So that's my last bits of thoughts and wisdom.
I'm not even gonna say anything else. Like, seriously, that was a perfect ending. I very much appreciate you being here with me today. Don't log off just yet. I am going to stop the live, and I'm going to stop the recording. But everybody, just wanted to thank you again for always being here, listening, following along, or watching the replay in the newsletter, or wherever it is. We will be changing the way this goes, and how you can access this pretty soon here next month. But I'm really excited about it, and it should make it a whole lot easier for everyone. Anyway, again, Julianne, thank you so much. And everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you for listening.